In days of each other, three of the world's most valuable private companies, Elon Musk's SpaceX, ChatGPT creator OpenAI, and Claude maker Anthropic, are preparing for their public debuts. They're all set to launch their IPOs and get listed on US stock exchanges. Why is this a big deal? Well, these IPOs are the most closely watched ones in modern financial history. It's a rare event when the world's most valuable AI-focused private companies are entering stock markets. This event will test investor appetite for historic valuations and for artificial intelligence. SpaceX could be the biggest ever IPO in the history of Wall Street, as it is seeking a record $1.75 trillion of a valuation, and it has already reportedly attracted more than $250 billion in investor demand for a $75 billion IPO. That is about 4 times oversubscription to the offer size. SpaceX has priced its shares ahead of listing at $135. Talk about Anthropic. Fresh off a $65 billion funding round that valued it at roughly $965 billion, has already begun the process, while OpenAI has followed with its own confidential filing and is targeting a valuation that could touch the $1 trillion mark as well. The question is, will these mega AI space IPOs remain a pipe dream for Indian investors despite all the excitement around the world? Let's decode that with our special guest today. We have with us Viram Shah, the co-founder and CEO of Vested Finance, joining in on the platform. Viram, warm welcome. Good morning to you. Good to have you with us on this special discussion. You are the expert of global investing at Vested Finance. You give a lot of opportunity to Indian investors to invest outside of India in the world of equities and other places as well. So we want to try and understand from you, first up, a lot of people are trying to understand whether they can participate in these mega AI-focused IPOs. Is it possible for Indian investors to participate if they have the money, the kind of money that is needed to invest in global biggest valued companies? Can they invest?
Firstly, good morning, Sakshi, and thank you for having me here. And very exciting times, especially in the global markets with all of these kind of IPOs, a scale that we've never seen before, right? Like you mentioned, 250 billion in subscriptions. That's
Yeah.
so unlike anything that's been seen before. So we're looking forward to an exciting second half of the year. On the question that you asked in terms of participating in the IPO, unfortunately, not just for Indian investors, for any retail investors globally,
Okay.
apart from especially SpaceX is a unique case. But other than that, retail investor participation in IPOs is very tricky. A lot of it gets pretty much covered by all of the institutions itself, especially these high demand companies. What one can do, and this is something that we launched last year on Vested, is one can participate pre-IPO in a lot of these companies. So we offered, in fact, last year the opportunity to our investors to participate in SpaceX pre-IPO, and very excitingly for us, our investors had gotten in at the price of $45 last year, and we all
Fantastic.
know now today
Yeah.
where they are listing. So we must be the only platform in India who has investors already in SpaceX, and we are excited to see how it all pans out. Of course, we don't know post listing what happens, but pre-IPO is possible. Post IPO, immediately after it lists, 3-4 hours later is possible. IPO is very difficult.
Okay, so one thing very clear, any retail investor outside of the US, particularly in countries like India, in case you're looking to just participate during the duration of the IPO, it may be very tricky because of the regulations. But pre-IPO and post-IPO, when the IPO gets listed, is when you can truly participate. What Viram is talking about is that in case you had been investing through them, then you would have had the opportunity last year in the pre-IPO phase to invest in SpaceX, and many of them have also got, SpaceX allotted at about $40. That's much less than the $135 that right now we are seeing as the pricing for SpaceX. So those may be the extremely excited investors. But what are the conditions there? If somebody has got that pre-IPO placement, how long do they have to stay in lock-in before they can finally take out their money after SpaceX gets listed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's typical like how it works in India also. So typically
Okay.
it's a 6-month lock-in post IPO. However, with SpaceX, we have seen they've been talking because so many of their investors are private investors. They are thinking of reducing the lock-in period. So it's up to the company actually post IPO, they can keep reducing it. So we might see the reduction in lock in from 6 months, but typically it's 6 months post IPO.
Okay. Now, a lot of people were trying to understand that if they have overseas brokerage accounts, say with companies like yours, or if they have some other means, can they invest directly in the stocks that get listed, or they have to go via some other route? Once these IPOs get listed, what happens then? If somebody has an international brokerage account, what happens? Do they still have an opportunity or still no?
Yeah, so once it's listed, definitely it takes. So I think on Friday, once SpaceX lists, it takes about 2 to 3 hours for sort of the price discovery to happen and the book to start building. But I think about by 10 or 11 p.m. India time, SpaceX will be available on the platform for anybody who wants to buy or sell as well.
Okay, so now we're talking about SpaceX, which is already getting listed this week itself on Friday. OpenAI and Anthropic will eventually follow. Give us an understanding if people are missing out on this opportunity so that they do not miss out on any future opportunity for the pre-IPO like you talked about as well. How long before does the pre-IPO opportunity begins for investors? How should they keep track of it, and what is the process then if somebody wants to really participate in the pre-IPO space?
Yeah, so nowadays, in fact, because these companies are raising so much money before they go public, and by the time they list, it's like $1 trillion of valuation, right? So 0 to 1 trillion is all in the private markets, and that's where a lot of activity has been happening in the US private markets, and that is the reason why we decided to enter this space so that our customers can also now participate in this growth, right? Because a lot of it is gone otherwise. So we keep bringing opportunities more and more onto the platform in the pre-IPO space. Wherever we find something that is of, because a lot of these are high demand, so finding the shares to buy from somebody becomes tricky. But whenever we do find something, they can just come onto the platform. We have a restriction, we can take only 99 investors in one go, so not everybody can participate, and the minimum amount tends to be about $10,000. So there is a threshold to start, but yeah, if somebody does have the capability, then it's a good way to enter before the IPO.
Okay, got that. So first up, remember there is a limit to how many people can apply, and $10,000 or about that money. So that would mean about 9.5 lakh rupees. Is
Correct.
so that kind of a money you should have to be able to invest in the pre-IPO stage, and plus you should know that there is a lock-in period which might get reduced, but right now it's at around 6 odd months right now as far as the pre-IPO investment buzz is concerned. Now give me an understanding. When the investors in Indian markets invest in unlisted shares or the pre-IPO stage, there is always a risk as to whether the final valuations will match the kind of price that they are entering in the prior space. Now, is that the same risk that happens even in global companies and AI companies like this? Because we are already talking about a huge debate on the overvaluation at which SpaceX is coming, about 100 times its sales. That's not been seen before. It's still in losses right now, and therefore the big question as to whether this valuation will be able to sustain even in the listed sphere or not. And therefore one should also remember what has happened with a Facebook IPO, what has happened with a Google IPO, back 2 decades ago, when these IPOs were not successful and eventually they took a long time to really reward the investors. How are you looking at such risks when Indian investors look at investing in such mega companies, but they do not know whether the valuations will sustain?
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's a very valid risk actually, because you don't know. I mean, like you mentioned, 100x of sales is unheard of, right? And so we don't know post lock-in where will it be and what is the returns that one will see. Uh, what we always sort of educate our customers is that you need to build a portfolio. You can't just bet on one company and be like, okay, this is my only sort of investment. You need
Yeah.
7, 8, 9 companies, of which one or two will give you outsized returns. That's the kind of theory of investing everywhere, right? One or two give you outsized returns, the others may not do so well, but your portfolio overall still does well. So that's the goal for private markets as well. If anybody getting started should look to build a portfolio, not just look at okay one company and that's it. And within the sector itself also, so within AI also there is so much happening. So you need to take care of to understand what the company actually does before investing in all of these companies. At the end, if you have enough margin of safety which I feel for SpaceX also. I personally am an investor as well pre-IPO, so I feel like there's enough margin of safety from 40 to 130 to
Yes.
feel comfortable.
Yes, so you have to be very aware of what price are you entering at, but at that time you may not know what will be the price that will be coming. So that's one risk that you always have to look at as well. But a lot of people are also talking about this entire space when three of the biggest, most valued companies are entering the public markets in the US, as whether this could be the peak of AI euphoria. Is this an AI bubble? Because the kind of valuations they are seeking are never seen before for such AI companies, or even they put them right at the pedestal with other biggest tech companies listed worldwide as well, the likes of Nvidia, Amazon. You talk about all of them, so they will just get listed if the valuation sustains right along with them. And this is all basis the expectation. Remember, AI story has just begun. This is only on talking about how the demand is going to multiply from here on. What is the kind of cash burn that these companies will have to do? So much of power will be needed, so much of infrastructure will be needed to really implement what their newest models have really got all the attention towards. So how would you look at this entire risk everybody is talking about? Will this be the peak AI euphoria?
It definitely feels like there is a lot of sort of froth in the market, and so one needs to be careful. You cannot get carried away and go overweight and end up with, let's say, 60-70% of your portfolio exposed to AI. And we've been seeing on the platform, people are actually taking counter AI bets as well, looking at defense as a sector, looking at pharma as a sector. So that is encouraging to see that not everybody is going with the trend. And while there is, like, for example, if you look at Anthropic, for example, it is about 45 billion in revenue and looking to list at around a trillion. So that is still not completely a high sort of revenue to sales multiple versus SpaceX. So SpaceX is just very unique. OpenAI and Anthropic might still have a lot more to show for the valuation. But then SpaceX is a lot related to kind of Elon Musk's charisma also, and the things that he's promising in the future. So we have hardcore Musk believers also on the platform, and folks who also create a diversified portfolio. One should just tread with caution.
Absolutely. Now let's try and understand, for those investors still looking at an opportunity in the listed space, which you did say that it is much better to look at opportunities in the listed space rather than pre-IPO or IPO stage. So out of these three, how are you looking at the options available for Indian investors to invest in SpaceX, OpenAI and Anthropic when they get listed? What are the options? How do they go forward with it?
Yes, so one needs to have a brokerage account, and under the LRS, one can remit dollars up to $250,000 to be able to transact in these companies. What I always, the personal view is that you need to let the dust settle after an IPO, because most folks are looking to exit. So 6 months later is when one should actually look to buy, and that's when you know what the actual company is doing and all of those things. So perhaps post IPO, immediately post IPO might not be the best option. There are a lot of AI related plays available already in the US markets, from software to AI infrastructure to semiconductors. So all of those are quite exciting in itself. One doesn't need to jump into these large IPOs right in the beginning.
Okay, so we do know that SpaceX is coming at $135. Do we already have the price for OpenAI and Anthropic, or will we eventually get to know that? And how are you looking at the valuation of all three?
Price for Anthropic and OpenAI, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
We do know they are in the sort of 800 to $1 trillion valuation range, both of those as well.
Okay. And now give me an understanding. You did say that you have to have a brokerage account. Are there also other ways of indirectly getting some investments in these companies? Say a lot of Indian investors have now started to diversify by investing in mutual funds that give them some of the other access in global companies by a way of their own investments there. So is that a better option, or should one go with direct investments like you talked about, open an international brokerage account and through LRS start investing?
Yeah, so now pretty much because there are caps on how much mutual funds can invest internationally, there's 7 billion cap, and that's been hit. So pretty much the only
Yes.
way to invest is through the LRS route, but through the LRS route, you don't necessarily need to do direct stocks only. You can either do ETFs. So you can, like, for example, do the Nasdaq 100 ETF, the S&P 500 ETF. Those are great indexes to just have exposure to great companies. And then you have the funds. These are now Gift City-based funds that are investing globally. The money transfer is still under LRS, but these are funds that are managed by Indian asset managers that will give you exposure to global companies. So that's also a very good option one can look at.
So, okay, so one is direct stocks, the second one is through funds, the third one is through ETFs like you talked about, Nasdaq and S&P 500, and apart from that, there are gift city, ways as well that one should be exploring how investors can do that. Could you just detail for us how to look at each of these aspects if somebody is interested in either of these methods? How does one go step by step?
Yes. So for ETFs and stocks, it's the same brokerage account. So in fact, all of these
Okay.
three are available on the platform. But for ETFs and stocks, because they're exchange listed, you need a brokerage account, and so you would open an account with us, load money into it, and you get immediate liquidity. You can keep buying and selling whenever you want, right? And within ETFs, typically index ETFs are the sort of most popular and the easiest if one doesn't know what to do. Or there are also nowadays there are thematic ETFs, so there will be like a space related ETFs. We offer some portfolios on top of it as well if somebody wants to look at that. But pretty much that's kind of the ETF and stock world, which is through a brokerage account, and you do a KYC, you load money under LRS, and you invest there. And coming to funds, now funds you can subdivide into kind of two types of funds. So one is funds that are domiciled in Gift City, which is a new and upcoming jurisdiction for funds, or there are already funds which are domiciled out of Europe. These are called UCITS funds, which are managed by the likes of BlackRock, Fidelity. These are global asset managers versus Gift City's more India asset managers. And that is a much more developed ecosystem. The UCITS ecosystem versus Gift City is a newer ecosystem. But again, both of those are great options. Gift City has fewer retail options today. Like there are a couple of them that allow you to start investing from $5,000 versus the Europe domicile. There are a lot more options that one can look at to get going today. So these are kind of the three or four options one can look at.
Right. So let's talk about the brokerage account as well to give greater clarity to our viewers. When we invest in India, we open accounts with either leading banks that have their broking firms. We have several other individual broking firms that are listed. We have HDFC, we have ICICI, SBI as the leading banks that offer. Many other banks also offer their broking accounts. Then we have the discount brokerage that got a lot of retail investors get onto them for their investments like Zerodha, like Grow, so many of them. But there are people like you, like Vested Finance, that invest globally. So how do Indian broking companies give you that opportunity, or you have to look at companies like yours that have international brokerage license or something that gives you an extra edge over these traditional brokerages?
Yeah, so for us, we decided that we will focus only on this space, which is connecting India to the world. So globally, Indians can invest internationally through us, or Indians living in India can invest internationally through us. And we also power a lot of the domestic brokers with their international investing solutions. So you can access our services through a few domestic brokers as well. Now there are newer domestic brokers that are coming up with solutions by working with other foreign brokers sort of to be able to offer. So you do need a foreign brokerage license to be able to offer this product, which is what we do ourselves. But some of them are now tying up and are entering this space more and more as the year progresses.
Okay. Now give me an understanding. When one invests in direct stocks, in global investment, we also have something which is not here in India so far, is to try and understand fractional investments. Do you think when these companies come at larger than life kind of prices that virtually get unaffordable for a lot of Indian investors, although $135 for SpaceX seems about what, 12,000, 13,000 odd rupees, that's still okay, because we ourselves also have so many companies which are priced at 30,000, 40,000, even over 1 lakh for MRF back home. So we can still fathom this kind of money. But when it goes beyond, trying and understanding that whether so much of money is even feasible for Indian investors, how do you explain to them what are the opportunities that exist?
So the fractional investing capability is essentially one of the key reasons why our business today is possible. Earlier, if you wanted to buy, for example, an Amazon stock is $3,000, $4,000, there was no way you could be able to buy it if essentially you're just coming from anywhere outside the US, pretty much, right? And the fractional investing capability allows you to buy a share up to an eighth of a decimal. So you can really start investing with as little as cents or a dollar, and that opened up a lot of these great companies for people who may not want to put in 2 3 lakhs 4 lakhs in one go to buy a share, right? And then have to buy and sell. So SpaceX, they did a stock split actually just before the IPO. Earlier the price was, they did a 5:1 split, so earlier the price was higher, but to increase the liquidity they decreased the price and split the shares. But fractional shares and fractional stocks essentially solves this now for pretty much everybody to give them access.
Okay. This topic beckons a lot of discussion and detailed discussion, which we will eventually do in a lot of other editions also with you. But just towards the end, give us and our viewers an understanding of how to look at the opportunity of global investing if they have still not started. There is a lot of FOMO around these big AI companies, but beyond it as well, we have seen what has happened in the last couple of months. We've seen a lot of Indian investors feel the FOMO that they have not invested in countries like Taiwan or Korea, which have given mammoth returns, whereas India has underperformed. So how are you advising Indian investors who are increasingly getting aware of whether they should look beyond India to give that extra edge or alpha to their portfolios?
Yeah, I mean, we have been shouting this from the last 6 7 years, and now I think a lot more people are realizing. But it is a must. It's just purely a portfolio creation strategy that one needs to keep in mind, that you have to have some allocation to the global markets. Now, the percentage really depends on your situation, right? So, if you have global goals, for example, like foreign education or travel, etc., then you may want more of your wealth in the international markets because your expenses are tied there, right? And so one of the key factors that now hurts is the rupee depreciation, which has kind of accelerated over the last year. But because of that, even though your wealth here might be increasing in India, the global spending power of that wealth reduces. And so that's one key reason why you need to have an international exposure. And depending on your international goals, your percentage can be anywhere between, let's say, 15-20% to even up to 40-50%, based on, again, your goals. The other is you want to be able to tap into great businesses worldwide, right? It's not just that the great businesses will be built only in India. There are great entrepreneurs across the world, and as investors, we have seen foreign investors come and benefit from India's entrepreneurial ecosystem. It's time for us also to look at benefiting from the global entrepreneurial ecosystem. Just one fact I will maybe leave your listeners with is, so today on Vested, we recently looked at the data. Our customers are sitting, we have almost about 800 million in deposits, and our customers are sitting on 500 million in profits. So this is essentially money that people have made investing in great global businesses, which they otherwise would not have, sitting in India, right? And that's, I think, just the beginning. I think in the next 10-20 years, more and more people will realize and start allocating a percentage globally.
Okay, and last question, you already are an investor in SpaceX by way of your pre-IPO investments. Are you also going to be looking at OpenAI or Anthropic? Have you invested there as well?
Yeah, we've done OpenAI also. So I'm an investor there as well.
Okay.
And Anthropic, we did not unfortunately get any kind of allocation. They were just way too in demand for us to get in. But I think SpaceX and OpenAI, I think we're the only platform which has Indian investors who are already sitting in those companies, and hopefully can build some wealth through what they do.
All right. Okay. All the very best to you, Viram. But we'll continue to have this conversation more often on Business Today to get more insights on global investing for all our viewers. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, viewers, we'll wrap it up on that note, but I hope you really got an understanding of how to really look at, from a wider lens, what these global mega AI companies, IPOs are presenting. Is this an opportunity as an Indian investor that you should look at? Of course, IPOs is not possible. Pre-IPOs is already done, but post-IPO, by way of listing, in case you're looking at taking a slice of these mega AI IPOs and space IPOs, after they get listed, then there are lots of ways that we've discussed today through which you can also be a part of it. Now, whether you should take this, because valuations again is a big debate, is something that you need to speak to your financial advisor about. We'll continue to get you more fascinating insights from the world of global mega IPO story.
Karnataka political drama is showing no signs of ending. Barely a week after DK Shivakumar took charge as Chief Minister, signs of discontent have begun surfacing over portfolio